Hello, and welcome to another Steel Divisional overview. And today we're taking a look at the Soviet 29th Tank Corps. It's another Soviet Tank Corps division thing. They got tanks. They're Soviet. There's some IS tanks, which is cool. Stalin is joining the battle. And yeah, it's a pretty standard tank division apart from that. So let's just get right into it. So it is an A tier division, and hey, it's tank. What a surprise! Massive surprise. I was not expecting that. In terms of slots, lots of tank slots and anti-tank, and everything else is pretty standard. Not a whole lot of infantry, and it gets pretty expensive pretty quickly. You got decent recon, decent air power. It's pretty standard for like a tank division, so to speak. You do have a lot of anti-tank, which is nice as well, because Soviet tank corps would have the majority of the anti-tank guns, while the infantry corps divisions, whatnot, units, I should really say, multiple groups of thousands of people. Let's go with that. Didn't really have many anti-tank guns, which is a bit weird, but we're getting a little bit off topic. Anyway, recon. And in the recon, there's not too much to talk about. We got the bike, which is rubbish, and you should never take. 2-man squads, motorized Radavkas, smaller 4-man, and then regular Radavkas, which are awesome, because they got bazookas and semi-automatic rifles. For dozers, in terms of transport, you got some M3A1s, you got some BA-20s in terms of armed things, and the regular transport options are honestly pretty good. You got a shit ton of Studebakers, and, decent amount of M2s, so it's pretty decent. And Studebakers are really the important, and the M2s are both really important for the majority of your infantry cargo capacity capabilities, because they're the fastest for like larger squads. But yeah, pretty standard recon transport stuff here. You got a Valentine Mark III tank, which is pretty shit. I'm really surprised that the Soviets in general use Valentine tanks as reconnaissance tanks. Just due to the speed. Like I wouldn't think like an infantry support tank would be a good recon tank. I'm talking from a realism standpoint, real war situation, not just from an in-game standpoint. It's like if the British use Churchill tanks, recon tanks, because it's the same sort of tank, an infantry support tank in a sense. But hey, it's probably a good explanation. If you know why, well, tell me in the comments below. But you also got the Su-57, which is awesome, because it's a 6-pounder recon anti-tank destroyer. A tank destroyer is already anti-tank, it's a little bit superfluous on an anti-tank. It's really good, because 6-pounder guns in 80 in SD2 shoot at the same fire rate as 45mm guns, like the Soviet and like Pak-36 small caliber weapons. But it does a lot more AP, and it's pretty accurate. And this thing also has recon optics, and it's pretty good at hiding inside the stuff. Well, it's alright. It's got bad stealth. Could be better, but pretty damn good vehicle. It's like tank destroyer to have. You get a decent amount of them, like 4 in A and 8 in B phase unvetted. It's pretty good. It's pretty damn good. So, infantry is really boring and bog standard. We're not going to spend much time. I mean, you got the tank Disney's, Sapri PPSHs. It's everything that a Red Army needs, essentially. Mainly it's a strokey spam, as you got 3 cards of regular strokey and only 1 card of strokey DP. So you definitely always want to take his card. 2 cards of Saparis, some Avta Machikis. Yeah, all pretty standard stuff here. You just don't have a lot of infantry slots, so you really have to make the most of it. You find it can be a little bit hard to justify taking leaders, because you really do not want to be spending activation points on the last 2 slots here, because that's a shit ton of points. And you need to get tanks in this division. This is a tank division. You really need to focus on that. So really, you're only really playing with 5 slots, to be entirely honest, with regards to this division, or core, I should say. So you just want to try to take the beefy infantry option. So Strokey DP, and Saparis. Tanks is where it gets a bit more fun. It's pretty standard Soviet tank equipment. There's nothing too crazy here. You got Valentine leader tanks if you're feeling risky. You got only one card of 19 or like 76mm T-34s if you run a little bit of cheap T-34 spam. It's not the 43 model, so it's not as cheap as the 43 model because it's like 45 points. But this one has pretty decent armor. Standard T-34s, you got T-34 leaders as well as is a commander leader, which is pretty damn cool. And then some more T-34s. Actually, honestly, a lot of T-34 85 models, as you can tell. Really, you just want to be taking the 1944 model over the 43. In my personal opinion, as you do get access to your APCR cells. The APCR cells aren't super amazing, because yes, they do a crap ton of penetration. But it only does 1 damage. But there is a chance that you can get good critical hits, or sometimes even blow up the tank due to a critical hit by getting that penetration shot with the APCR shells. Even though you don't get a lot, it's definitely a nice thing to have. You do get a little bit more availability per card with the 43 model, as you can tell, so that's also an advantage. But I don't really find just a little bit of extra availability to be all that helpful personally. And just the access to APCR is just a nice little thing to have under your belt. And then you got IS-2s, only a 1943 model. I'm saying only, but it's still pretty good because it has 160mm of armor. The 44 model, which is in 3rd Guard Tank Corps, if I recall, is 180, so an extra 20mm. It doesn't really make too much of a difference in most things. But it's a bloody IS-2, and IS-2s are really good tanks. Just because heavy tanks in SD2 within themselves are very good to have in the field, as there's a lot of open ground areas in SD2, especially if you're playing team games, so having a big fat tank with a big fat gun that can't get blown up from all the AT guns that are hidden in all the forest is very useful. Of course, the main problems with the IS-2 is its very slow fire rate on the gun and the lack of AP shells, as you will eventually run out of AP shells after, you know, a few minutes of intense tank fighting. But it can just sit here and take a lot of heat. And you have the T-34-85s backing you up. So really how it works out is that you use the IS-2 to be the frontline tank of the group. And then the T-34 is your DPS, if we're talking about it in MMO terms. I guess the supply trucks would be healers. And that takes us to support. It's really standard stuff. You got machine gun teams, flamethrower teams, support guns, supply trucks, and then your regular commanders. Really nothing worthwhile to mention. Anti-tank is pretty cool, because yes, you have a really decent amount of anti-tank options. It's a little bit superfluous, I can't bloody say it, but you should know what I mean. As you already have really good anti-tank weaponry, the T-34 85s and the IS-2s, you're not lacking in armor penetration power. But if you do need some more, you got some ZIS-2s, some ZIS-3s, some SU-85s, which is worse T-34 85s. You know, some 45 mils, PTRSs, I'm just listing all the units. But really, the cool one here is the Wolverine, the M10 tank destroyer. Unlike its American counterparts, the Soviets decided to cut off the machine gun, which is a bit of a shame because this thing is really terrible against infantry of only 10 HE shells on the 76mm. But it's it's an alright anti-tank weaponry. You know, it's got a slightly better rate of fire over the T-34s and the SU-85s, which is nice, just by a little bit. Not that much to make a difference. Its armor penetration capabilities is good. You can kill Panzer IVs and Stugs, and you have a little bit of a hard time with Tiger tanks, but it is possible to penetrate them as well. It's alright, but you already have good stuff anyway in the tanks tab, so it's not really needed, unfortunately. And also, I guess also a nice thing too, it does have good optics. It has the same optics as recon units, actually. Oh no, no, it's just one below in terms of high compared to good. As I high is better than good in this case in terms of recon optics standards, so to speak. But still, pretty good for just a tank destroyer. It's open top, and open top tank destroyers have better optics. Anyway, anti-air is really boring. You got 50 cal on the back of a truck, bunch of machine guns in the back of a truck, and then 37 mils. You really just want to be taking the 37 mils, as they're the lovely all-rounders in terms of anti-aircraft weaponry. Artillery is really boring as well. You got some off-map, only 76mm off-map, so it's nothing crazy, but it's very cheap, and you got good availability of them. So, honestly, not too bad. You also got a bunch of on-map 76mm, and then after that, it's really just mortars. Nothing too crazy, just different mortars, and one card of Katyushas. Katyushas are no longer as awesome as they were during the release of the game anymore. If you ever go back and watch that second guard tank core video, I'd recommend not really taking Katyushas anymore. They use up a shit ton of supply, they take too long to aim, and yeah, they're just not very good in that regard. You can just kind of get the similar effect of just buying a load of mortars and just constantly barraging an area and then moving up. So yeah, just avoid the Katyusha. It really only belongs to be sung by Soviet troopers when you select them every now and again. Airplanes is not bad. There's actually some fun stuff going on here. A bit of Lend-Lease nonsense. You got your standard PO2, crappy little slow recon plane if you are crazy enough to take crappy slow recon planes. Especially in a deck like this where you don't have a lot of air power slots, it's pretty useless. After yeah, a lot of the planes are actually pretty expensive. There's nothing really under 90 or 100 points that isn't the recon plane. You got the A-20 Zhukov, which is a ground attack plane with a bunch of stuff on the front of it. For 50 cals and 4 20 mils, a very good strafing plane. You can really mess up AT guns, pretty much any soft target, and heck, even tanks. If you get some side shots on tanks, especially for like medium light tanks, you can actually kill them. It's actually pretty damn good, and it's got a little bit of a. Or a little bit, it has one rear-mounted turret machine gun for defense, but it has pretty good stats. 500 kilometers an hour, it's reasonably fast for a plane of its caliber, and a bad agility, but that's pretty much expected. So actually the agility, I forgot, the agility does change with plane veterancy, so as you can see, it's actually meant to be very bad in the box standard configuration. And you got some LA-5s, which are fun little Soviet fighter planes, pretty agile. You got some Air Cobras, which are fun little Soviet fighter planes, which are actually American planes. But the funny thing about the Air Cobra, the Americans, it's an American-built plane, but they didn't really use it because it had, from what I recall, this may not be 100% accurate, it had pretty terrible stalling characteristics. There was a lot of accidents when the Americans were flying this plane. So they built a bunch of them, but they never really wanted to put them into service. You had much better planes like the P-40 and P-51, the P-47. So it's something a little bit more reliable. So they just lend-lease a lot of these over to the Russians, and the Russians really liked them. It was a good low-altitude fighter plane, and that was how the Eastern Front worked in terms of the air war. It's a lot of low altitude, shorter engagements compared to the longer air supremacy of the Western Front. And yeah, so they're still dangerous, but the Soviets weren't as concerned with said stalling characteristics. It was a little bit better than some of the other planes they were flying at the time. Anyway, it's actually a pretty good plane in this game as well, because if you get behind something, it dies when it gets hit by a 37mm. Anyway, you got rocket versions of the P-37, P-39, my bad. It's alright as well. And then some A-20 bombers, which have pretty decent bomb loads. This one especially, with the 500 kilograms, that's pretty substantial stuff, yeah. And then defense, if you actually bother playing breakthrough mode, which no one really does. You just got bunkers. That's really it. But yeah, that's a quick overview of the composition of the deck. So let's see how a pre-made deck is set up. And it's the deck that I built earlier. Once again, the deck code is in the description below. So this is a balanced income deck. You can really make 29th Tank Corps work in either really any of the incomes. You got good availability options in all those regards. Essentially, the deck we're going to see in the replay is actually a Maverick one, so if you want something a little bit different, you should check out that deck. But yeah, it's just a simple balance, pretty straightforward. You could play as 1v1s, you could play as team games. It works pretty well in most situations. So let's just jump into it. So I'm taking 2-man Scrotch with the Armored Personnel Carrier for extra recon units in the same card. The SU-57, because it's awesome, it's such a good unit. It just picks off Panzer IVs, bang, 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 and it runs away before it gets shot at. And then some Radavkas later on. You don't get the... I didn't take him. Yeah, you can't even take him with like an armed transport where you can keep the unit on the field. But Radavkas are awesome because that bazooka... I've seen people sneak these guys behind enemy lines and snipe a tiger or two, and it is very satisfying to pull off. And it's very cost efficient to be blowing up tigers with this unit. So I highly recommend. Infantry, we're really just taking the standard infantry loadouts. We're not taking any leaders or anything too fancy, as we just don't have the activation points to do it. So it's just strokey spam throughout A, B, and C phase, and then some sapperies for close range support. It's really standard stuff. Nothing really worthwhile to mention. And all unvetted, because that's how you really should take infantry most of the time, as with infantry, quantity is really the quality in this regard. Tanks, I took a pretty balanced, safe approach to this. Pretty much I took A phase, B phase, and C phase card of T-3045s. Once again unvetted, as I feel like with tanks, it's quantity over quality. Yeah, it's a pretty good option or reason to take these guys vetted. But I find, personally, from my playstyle, like losing 5 tanks for like, a little bit of extra accuracy and 1 extra rate of fire isn't really substantial enough to really justify the cost. Also, you know, get better morale, suppression, resistance, and all of that, but losing that many tanks, even like B phase, is, I just don't really think, worth it, to be entirely honest. I'm not taking many leader units in this deck, as you see. Even in the artillery tab, I'm taking no leaders. And I also don't have any commanders. This is a pretty leaderless deck. The only leaders are these tanks here. The reason being is I need to take regular units. If infantry is too expensive to reasonably take leaders, and that's really where you want to be getting a lot of your leaders, and I just kind of want decent tank spam, and I'm like using the other tabs rather heavily as well. So we're just light on leadership a bit. It does suck, but you do get by. I mean, you got tank leaders here, which is nice, and they should be enough. The A phase IS-2 is a real powerhouse. Also a leader unit, which is nice. Got some B phase T-34s with the hero unit attached. And yeah, T-3045s and IS-2 spam. Really, like I said earlier, how you play this division is you just use your IS-2s to be frontline heavy, take the shots, and the T-34s support you in the rear. Works out really well. Support, really standard, you know, augment cheeky, support gun, really nothing all that crazy going on here. Anti-tank, nothing really too crazy either. Pretty heavy A-phase AT, as we don't have a lot of A-phase tanks. Well, the SU-57 also counts as an A-phase tank, armoured vehicle, I regard. But anyway, we just take some M10s early on, just because they're cheap, they're easy, we can throw them in, it works. And then just some cheap AT guns, and the P2S is for the opener of the mats to rush inside a church tower and snipe Germans and open blitzes before they get to the front line. And ZIS-2s, we don't really need ZIS-2s. But it's nice to have some sort of good AT gun in a cheap defensive role. So we have ZIS-2s. Anti-air's 37 mils. That's all that needs to be said. And artillery, it's mortars, really mostly mortars, and some of the field guns. So these field guns are pretty good. I am taking them with supply trucks to get even extra supply. Does up the cost by quite a bit, from 60 to 80 points. But the extra supply goes quite a long way. I am also taking the off-map in A phase. It's not the best off-map in the world. It's only 76 mils. It's literally just used guns, but not present on the battlefield. But for 40 points and you get through them, that's not too bad for an opener. You can open up with this at the start of the match, rush it up towards the town, and do a preliminary bombardment on the enemy side of the town to slow down any reinforcements or stun up any infantry that has unloaded in said town. So it works. Then there's mortar half-track, mortar bikes, and then some 120 mils in B phase. It's more than enough artillery to get you by. It's nothing crazy, it's nothing great, but it's reasonable artillery nonetheless. And air power is really just Cobras, LA5s, and then the A20 and A phase is really fun. It's a really fun thing to just strafe the hell out of Panzer II Luxes and Pack 40s and all of that good stuff. It's a lot of fun to strafe with this vehicle. It does not mess about when it shoots at an enemy target. So, overall, the pros of this division is, you know, you got tanks and stuff. It's a tank division. You got good tanks. It's reasonable. Like, T-3045s and IS-2s are a lovely combo. And you just kind of got, like, the average Soviet equipment. There's nothing crazy going on here. Like, a lot of Soviet divisions, it's all pretty standard, you know, cookie cutter stuff. But it works. Yes, it's not like the German divisions where they're all just very different in terms of compositions and degrees of a bunch of elite units to a bunch of crap units. A lot of Soviet stuff is just pretty average, but that averageness works. And because it's pretty average, it's honestly pretty hard to make cons for this division. The only ones I could really reasonably come up with is like your infantry, yeah, power in a sense, and artillery tabs. A little bit subpar. They're not fantastic, but they're not terrible either. Just a little bit worse compared to the standard Soviet equipment. But yeah, it's a pretty straightforward tank division like a lot of Soviet divisions. You just kind of spam the infantry, you use the tanks to blow all the Germans up. You just use everything in the arsenal. It works. It just works. So with that out of the way, let's actually see how the 29th Tank Corps works. And here we are on a 1v1 on Ciano. We have the JSF Fenix playing as 29th Tank Corps with a Maverick income, and Romelt playing as Hartnik with a Juggernaut income. And Fenix, as you see, he's playing a Maverick income deck, and as you see in the actual deck composition, it is extremely Maverick. There's not a single C-phase card to be found. There's also only one recon card being found, because, hey, recon isn't super important in SD2. You can kind of get away with infantry spam. He's taken more of the infantry cards, as you can tell, to get more of that extra infantry spam. But, as you see, he has a little less artillery, much less recon, all of that stuff. But there's going to be B-phase T-34 spam with some IS-2s. A little bit heavier in terms of ground attack planes, a little lighter in terms of artillery. Yeah, it's a Maverick income 29th, and we're just gotta see how it works out. And as you may notice in terms of the timer, it's a pretty long match, and that's surprising considering this is Maverick. And as we see from the availability, you just do not have C-phase cards, especially considering he's fighting a Juggernaut income. That's pretty crazy. And Hartnik is not a division to sneeze at. They're one of the best divisions you can game. The infantry beats out Fenix by quite a decent margin. Their power with Hartnik, especially for the Messerschmitt spam, they're a pretty damn good division, all in all. The thing about Hartnik is, when it comes to tank-on-tank, war strength, firepower, 1v1 honourable duels, Fenix wins because IS-2s beat out regular Tiger tanks. Pretty easy peasy. And it's a pretty good map for IS-2s. There's a lot of open ground areas for you to park your IS-2 on a hillside and to shoot at everything. And Realmart doesn't have any PaK-43 style guns and can reliably kill the IS-2. Yes, the PaK-40 can penetrate with APCR shells, but those APCR shells don't have a good chance of one-shot killing the IS-2. And the IS-2 is a pretty good shot of really messing up PaK-40s. So anyway, looking at the initial deployment, it's pretty, on the right side, it's pretty tank light. It's really just a lot of infantry and AT gun here and there. The middle is where all the armor is really coming down, as we've got an IS-2, an M10, and a T-34-85, all going down the road with a bunch of infantry. Supporting, and left flank is pretty barren. Honestly, a pretty standard move on this map, as it really is a rat race to try and get to this center line town, as it's easier to capture at the start of the match, but once the lines get settled, it just becomes a no man's land fight between both sides as they fight over the goats, a bloody goat. And 45 mils getting into position fast because of Jeep transports, of course. And see, getting some good snipes on transports as they come in. But Realmart Gonte has this free gun of his own, and he is getting pretty good shots from Fenix's infantry. Fenix gets up to unload a little bit away from the town, which is a safer move. Means he's going to take quite a bit of time to get in here, but fortunately for him, Realmart has not decided to bring much more infantry over here. Instead, he's pushing pretty heavy on the far right. And in town fight, Realmart pretty much wins. He's got cavalry Jaegers, which are great CQC troops, and you got the Panzergrenadiers and machine guns, you got right Jaegers with MP44s, and we haven't even got to the Hungarians. It gets pretty scary with Hartnick's infantry, is what I'm trying to say. You see, Strokeys in the open just get splattered, essentially. Really, the infantry for train length, it's just, yeah, to get shot at, especially with Strokey. Just to draw fire and to allow your other units to do the talking by shooting the enemy to absolute bitch. But the tanks are actually making a very ballsy move along the center line here. Fortunately, it's only a T-34, 76 opposing him, but there are some Mortar 2s being brought in. They're only the Mortar 2s, or Mortar 3s, sorry. That's only the baseline Mortar 3s, not the H models, so they have the Russian discount, which means they have a pretty terrible time penetrating the T-34 and the IS-2 tanks. What a chance, especially if this IS-2 keeps showing its side armor like this. The M10's probably gonna die. He's probably gonna die. You see, it's pretty even Stevens along this initial opener. We actually seen an airplane being brought in, getting a good strike. Even though Hartnick has really good air power in terms of actual planes, not so much in terms of anti-air. Yeah, they do have a few of the quad 20mm trucks, which are really scary, but not a lot. You see, we got an IS-2 being brought into the right-hand side, as Fenix does have two A-phase IS-2s, and because you're playing Maverick, of course you're going to try and take him as soon as possible. As for a Maverick income, you really need to try and get that early victory. Of course, we know, with hindsight, that's not going to happen. Yeah, it's a pretty quiet opener of the match. That's why I'm just speeding through this. Not really much to talk about. Really, a lot of train life, the good 29th play just comes down to using your IS-2s effectively. And T-40-45s. I talk a lot of talk for the IS-2s. I'll probably overhype them a little bit, because they are really good tanks. But they're not the be-all end-all. Like, you got other good supporting units through this division. If you were to take this, if you were to make this division and not have IS-2s in it, it would be a hindrance, but it'd still be entirely playable, because you have way more than enough T-40-45s to do a good job. But if you have IS-2s, you might as well take them. I mean, just look at it. Look at the size of that thing. It's like a hot cross bun on the turret, yeah. The right hand flank is not going too well just due to the lack of resources here. You can only get 2 IS-2s in a phase, and they can only be in 2 spots. As he traded... Oh, the AT gun shot, yes, and then this shot, the tank. Both for T-34s. We're seeing the mortars being used in the town fights. Mortars are always king. That's using smoke pretty effectively to try and block the machine guns and Marder 3s from giving any fire support. That's going to allow him to get the Automachikis up. And Automachikis are very tough units to use. The SMG troops are really shit at the moment because they have a limited range. Hopefully I fix that in the future. Maybe buff the range for SMGs. The smoke is definitely going to allow him to get in close. And that's what you need to do with SMGs. You need to get in close, get in tight. We've got hedges being brought in now. Starks as we're getting to B phase, and this is really the time for Fenix to sign, but as you can see, that's not happening. Because... well, pretty much just because... I was actually thinking the train of thought there was not a comedic pause. Because he doesn't have his flag, because he just literally has nothing on that point. And the Romon's doing a very good job of just holding the line. As you see, the left-hand flank, I mean, Fenix does have the town under his control, which is good to have, but hasn't really managed to exploit any further over here, which I think is a little bit of a shame in terms of hindsight, as you do have the possibility of doing that. You know, it is pretty dangerous going up the hill, because at close range, it could be AT guns here that can just shoot your stuff across the road, and that's not good. And Roman's doing a very good job just putting pressure on his right-hand flank. It's really both players' best bet of running the match is going to come down to his right-hand flank, as you can actually maneuver around it a bit. And we're just fighting over this, you know, strip of territory. It's just coming down to an infantry artillery war. It just kind of sucks about this town, is just how dense it is. Very easy to just artillery spam it and just stop any maneuver. It's very thin and not very wide. But Fenix's air power is doing very well. Cobra shooting down Lania. Boston doing some ground attack runs. Yeah, just a bit of mortar spam. Fenix really spending a lot of his income on getting those tanks out. I mean, it is Maverick. The nice thing with Maverick income is it can get, you know, nice 2 every minute in B phase. You can also do the same thing with balanced income once you hit C phase. Yeah, I mean, there's really not much to say here. It really just comes down to the tank play and being able to trade efficiently with Hartnick's tank, as Hartnick does have a good amount of tank options. The Tigers, the Hetches, the Stooks. It's a little bit all over, but it's a pretty good amount. You see, killing that Tiger, easy peasy, T-34-85 in a fantastic spot. And seriously, that's a really good spot for that T-34. My Xbox controller unplugged. That's where you heard that little beeping sound. And he kills the Hetch, yeah, just really good tank trade, yeah. And especially with a Maverick income, you really want to try and make your B phase units last. But he has managed to flip the tide a bit to a 13-11. And just managed to secure the town thanks to bringing more infantry and using artillery effectively. I mean, the artillery Riv 29th is decent, to be fair. Just because inherently 120mm mortars and 81mm mortars are good. I mean, I don't have the corrected shot bonuses like field guns, for example. But a lot of Soviet stuff doesn't have corrected shot bonuses, including the field guns. It is to be a little bit more micro heavy with the 120mm and 80mm mortars in general, because you have to keep them closer to the front line to make them effective. Even though you do have pretty long range, you do want to try and keep them as close as possible, so they are a little bit more accurate. You see, he's getting a little bit counter-artied here by Hartnick. And Hartnett doesn't have a great artillery selection either. They got like a few of these crappy 75mm field guns, some mortar half-tracks. And honestly, I don't see a lot of Hartnett players taking mortar half-tracks, which is a real big shame because mortar half-tracks are the best artillery unit in this game. Fenix's anti-air is working out pretty well, his air defense network. Is that even in? Yeah, he's got like 37mm here, and another run over here, and airplanes as well, so he's doing pretty good at keeping the skies under his control. And we're on to sea phase, and this is where it's really crazy, because this is the largest point difference that you can have between two players currently in the game. That's a 140 point difference between both guys per minute. That's insane. It's absolutely insane. More than double the income. This is not a very good time for Fenix. This is not a good time to be a Maverick player. It's also very crazy seeing someone actually play Juggernaut, because you do not see that in 1v1s, just due to the income risk of not having much income in the first 20 minutes. But Fenix hasn't been too offensive on him. He's been, I mean, he really pushed his town, and that's really it in terms of offensive plays during that B phase. He did give Roma quite a bit of time to consolidate, think about his moves, and just survive the initial 20-minute game. Fenix is slowly moving up infantry into the forest. Not going to work out too well. Some soft troops in there. And those Molotovs are scary. Not a cocktail I would want to drink. Tronkies are... they're barely holding on, but the other soft trooping squad, he's going to get the Molotov out. And it's going to be a surrender to Strelky DP. And at this point, you really do not want to be losing units with Fenix's division. 29th, as he has no C-phase cards. He's already tapped out his potential availability resources. He's just going to have to make do with what he's got. But he's doing pretty good. He hasn't lost... I think all of his IS-2s are still alive. This one over here is still alive. The one over here is still alive. And he got another one over here. As long as his IS-2s don't die, you still have a pretty good shot. And Hartnett has a really hard time killing those IS-2s. Because they don't have Pak-43 guns. They're the only real effective way to kill them. But see, just combined arms warfare, standard Soviet play, or tank play. And also good use of smoke as well. I don't see a lot of plays using smoke, and smoke is always a good play against. Well, it's not good when it's used against you, but so is that you're fighting against a good player when they make that play. Smoke play. But Messerschmitt gonna get... oh, doesn't get a kill on a boss and barely gets out. Skin of its teeth. But Strelky DP are the really only... Saparis too. Are really only competent infantry that you get. They're better than guard DPs because you got all the semi-auto rifles, so you do have a good shot in long-range engagements. But these grenadiers do have the veterancy, and they also are in cover, even though they have a worse weapon loadout or long-range fights. And T-34s again get into position and provide some much-needed fire support. Now, left-hand side, still very quiet. Neither side really wanted to make the play. IS-2 does actually get picked off, though. Probably was from the Tiger tank. Yeah, it was definitely like a side shot. And that's a pretty big loss there, right in the middle. It's kind of the danger of keeping your tanks flat bang in the open instead of maybe just a little bit back on the hilltop here. The Germans and Hungarians in that case definitely held the high ground. Yes, it's a very slow... I mean, Fenix has grabbed jet lands and B phase just enough to get that +1 point advantage, and he's just holding. And honestly, at this point, this is all you can do. You do not want to be making offensive plays in this scenario as a Maverick versus Juggernaut. You do not have the availability to do so. You cannot afford to lose units. You're just going to have to just hold on to dear life. Reinforcements aren't coming. You have to make do with what you got. You're going to have to survive. And right now, it's not looking good. Robot is pushing very, very heavily for all of his stuff on the left-hand flank here. The Pantograms, the Tigers, the Martyrs. Fenix is just losing things left and right. He still has reinforcements to tap into. Another IS-2, T-34, Cementier. But not a whole lot in terms of infantry anymore at this point. Even if a Maverick income deck, I'd still personally recommend taking a C-phase card of Strokey. If you can ever take Strokey, or if you can, okay, let me rephrase this. If you can ever take like a basic Rifleman card in C-phase and it has like 27 or more per card, always take it. Because a lot of the time, the game will go to C-phase and SD2. Even if you're playing a Maverick or Vanguard deck, you're not hoping it to go to C-phase. It will still go to C-phase. Unless you completely ride the opponent. So having one card's worth of complete and utter infantry spam really keeps you in the game. Just because infantry is so vital under holding onto points. Like imagine, like you could play this game without NTR. There's decks that do that. You can play this game without artillery, you're going to have a hard time. You can play this game without using tanks in the tank slot. That's all viable. It's hard, but it's viable. If you play this game without infantry, just alt F4, you're going to lose. You know, I'd be really curious to see someone play a 1v1, like a proper 1v1, but they take 0 cards in the infantry tab. I think that'd be a very hard challenge to pull off. It'd be like the opposite of artillery only. Like infantry excluded. Yeah, T-34s and the tank blob. You got a pretty scary tank force to train line, which keeps you in the game like this. That's against Hartnick. If he was fighting more of a traditional Panzer division, like 5th SS, 5th Panzer, any of the Western Front Panzer divisions, with Panthers, because Panthers are scary. They're really scary. You're going to have a bit of a harder time. But he's just holding. It's the Trove. Not much you can do. Okay, it's actually pushing a little bit over here, but I don't think it's really going to be enough to make it any farther inland or get another flag. He's really just going to be able to hold on to his flag more than anything. Losing a town over here does suck, as it is bringing him down. It's just going to come down to attrition warfare, and it's really not in Fenix's strong point. Starting to lose tanks now. But he's got a pretty good, he's got a very nice defensive setup on the right-hand flank. The town's pretty heavily infested. That's a bit rude, but heavily defended by Soviet troops. And he's also doing the same thing in right-hand flank here. It's pretty easy to set up defenses, like tanks and AT guns and light and heavy forest. But yeah. Well, Hartnick has a lot of stuff now, and a lot of money to get stuff. In terms of, if you just look at the mini-map in terms of, just unit density, it's still pretty even Stevens for both sides. As Fenix has been doing a pretty good job of killing lots of Germans and Hungarians. Actually, looking at it, I don't think Roma has even taken any of the Hungarian infantry units. I haven't actually noticed any. Now I look at it, it's just like right Jaegers and Pantogrenades is going for a much more traditional German loadout. Which I think is a little bit of a mistake, because it was Hungarian troops are the second best infantry in game. Behind, as I already mentioned, what's it called? Ah, bloody hell. The, Sturmschützen. There we go. Because you can't go wrong with 13 STGs. It's just holding on to what he's got. Infantry, holding the line. It's really just a defensive game. Well, because you have tank advantage and enough infantry just to hold the line, you have a decent shot. But as you see, I'm thinking Robots is starting to like run out of ideas of things to buy. So now he's just doing the classic. Right, these are Hungarian troops actually, so yeah, technically some Hungarians. The classic, you know, just buy a conga line of planes. Start strafing everything. Not a bad choice. Fenix is still bleeding Rama by a bit. In terms of long game viability, Fenix really has the advantage. Oh, has the disadvantage, I should say. But it's just managing to hold on to dear life for each of his flags. And also, Rama isn't really, you know, putting enough pressure on Fenix, especially on his right-hand flank. Like, just get some more artillery pieces. Well, he already has enough artillery. Just direct all the artillery to barrage the shit out of this town. And you just foot slog all the infantry inside and capture it. It's really all you have to do to capture that area. But he's focusing more on the left-hand flank. And this is the problem about pushing this side in general. You have to go uphill. And it's a pretty big ridgeline. This is just perfect natural defense. It's really giving Fenix the advantage over here. And Roma is trying to just battery the absolute shit out of Fenix's lines. But it's not really working. Not really. The 75 mils at long range about... Well, this is... Is this right of you and not have a radio? Is that... Yeah, it does. Yes, it does. There's a German unit. It always has a radio. Yeah, it's just, as you see, the match is about to end, and it's still pretty even Stevens. I think Fenix has managed to outlast Romad. I mean, he killed a lot of tigers. I mean, it's been a pretty fast replay, but if you notice, he has meant to kill quite a lot of those fat cats. And in the attrition warfare, it is really surprising. Romic did make some pretty major mistakes, as he just did not put enough pressure during his sea phase. Because just without economy, without logistics setup, you really should have ridden the Juggernaut and the sea phase with that income, but Fenix held his own, and as you can see, he killed a lot of shit. Like, double the points. That's pretty crazy for 1v1. And looking at the chronology here, I mean, earlier on, yeah, I mean, it's just going to be a lot of dead Germans, I guess. And yeah, it is. We have some spikes of Soviets getting blown up, shot up, killed, all of that good stuff. But you see, like, later in sea phase, a huge blob of, you know, pretty expensive German stuff all getting killed. I believe it was right-hand flank, yeah. Like, just good T-34 positioning. Like, knocking out some AA guns, yeah. If you just look at the kills here, the tanks, you know, Stalin would be very proud. Yeah, his namesake tank has done much work for the Red Army. T-34 is also holding the ground. Sapperies, great infantry in it. Anti-air also doing, like, ridiculous. Jesus fucking Christ. Pardon language, but that's fucking obscene. That is obscene. I shouldn't, like... Do they have radar-guided missiles? Like, what's going on here? What's going on here? Yeah, it's just a lot of kills. Fenix did a very good job in that match, and I just look at losses real fast. I don't think, yeah... I think, to be fair, like, Ramat did make some pretty major mistakes. This in terms of Hartnick's... I think he really should have took some Hungarians, or not even that just yet, but just be a bit more aggressive in that sea phase, like I mentioned. Because he did drop the ball in that regard, and not pushing hard enough. But yeah, good job, Fenix, for, like, surviving that onslaught. And as you see, 29th is nothing really too crazy to play. Soviet stuff is nothing, there's no crazy bells or whistles going on. I don't understand with a lot of these Soviet overviews, it's a lot of the same stuff, as they're all pretty similar. But, in the words of the Fallout man himself, it just works. And well, I'm gonna leave it off at that. This has been another Steel Divisional overview. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And as usual, please just take it easy.